Hello there, and welcome to another edition of the King's Square Reviews. This review is focusing on Reacher Season 3, Episode 6, titled Smoke on the Water. This is going to be a spoiler heavy recap, so if you have not watched the episode, stop listening to me and go watch it, then come back. Before diving into the recap, it's time for some shameless self promotion. If you're enjoying my content, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button as well as the bell icon to get notifications when I post new content. And if you'd like to show further support, consider signing up for my Patreon, the link's in the description below. Patreon subscribers get early access to reviews like this, as well as exclusives that are only available there. Thanks for your indulgence while I promote my stuff. Let's get on with the review. Smoke on the Water picks up directly after the end of SmackDown, the previous episode. Reacher and Zachary Beck are about to meet Xavier Quinn, aka Julius McCabe. Quinn announces his presence by verbally berating Zachary, something the browbeaten man is used to at this point. Beck doesn't fight back in any way, accepting the abuse heaped on him by Quinn. Xavier is a classic bully, ruling through intimidation and fear. When you look at the people he surrounds himself with, like Harley and Paulie, it shows. None of them are here out of loyalty to Quinn. Quinn's goons work for him because they're either terrified of him, like Beck is, or Quinn allows them to indulge in their worst impulses, like Paulie does. Quinn introduces himself to Reacher as Julius McCabe and shows zero recognition of Reacher. Clearly, the retrograde amnesia is legitimate. Quinn doesn't remember this bear of a human being who put a bullet in his head years ago. There's a brief moment where Reacher is about to shoot Quinn when one of the warehouse goons walks by holding a tailored dress meant for a woman. It's all the confirmation we need that Teresa, Duffy's confidential informant, is still alive. Reacher hesitates, but ultimately decides to forego his revenge on Quinn, choosing instead to play along as Quinn orders him and Paulie to back him up as a mysterious black sedan arrives. To be honest, if I had Reacher and Paulie backing me up, I'd look like the most terrifying mob boss around. Quinn uses these two mountainous human beings to project strength in front of Taktarov, a Russian mafia boss. While Quinn rules through fear, he isn't impervious to feeling the same sensation. Taktarov is no one to mess around with based on the small moments of screen time we see here. This mob boss wouldn't hesitate to wipe Quinn off the map like a grease stain and then continue on with his day like nothing ever happened. Quinn's on edge from the repeated assaults on his business. He's definitely feeling the heat and decides to enlist the help of someone in Arlington, Virginia, to find out who has been snooping around his operation. On the drive back from the meeting, Reacher makes some deductions about Zachary Beck's situation. Zachary was never just in the rug business. Instead, he was always a gun runner, just not one on a large scale. Quinn arrived at some point in the recent past and used the money provided by the Russians to absorb Zachary's business. Abducting and disfiguring Richard was just Quinn following his usual pattern of coercion to ensure Zachary's cooperation in the transfer of power. Meanwhile, Duffy and Villanueva track down the dressmaker based on the label on the bag they saw entering the warehouse. Frank the dressmaker is a pretty cool cat who loves classic movies and redheads. He's my kind of guy, to be honest. While he doesn't provide too many details, Frank does provide Duffy with a phone number that he was given when someone commissioned him for the dress. As we found out during the scene in the warehouse, Quinn plans on using Teresa as a sweetener in his upcoming weapons deal. I've been waiting for the walls to start closing in on Reacher the past two episodes. We finally start to see things begin to fall apart here in episode 6. First, it's something simple. Reacher and Richard Beck go into town to get the epoxy Richard needs to repair the toy gun he bought his father for his birthday. While in town, Reacher meets Duffy to return her badge and discuss the recent developments. We finally get the first kiss between Reacher and Duffy, which she quickly retracts, confusing Reacher deeply. I have to agree with Reacher in this moment. He didn't initiate the kiss, and the affront Duffy shows after it is just weird. Right as Villanueva turns the corner to announce their parking situation, Richard appears at the other end of the alley looking for Reacher. Seeing the cop Reacher supposedly killed in the first episode alive and well, Richard is clearly confused. We then cut to the title card. So all of that happens as the cold open to the episode. The rest of the episode doesn't let up that much moving forward. I liked the quick confrontation between Richard and Reacher on the drive back to the Beck compound. Richard is clearly skeptical of who his bodyguard is, questioning everything that's happened. In short, declarative statements, Reacher lays out why he went undercover and what his true purpose is. Richard tries to play tough, insinuating that Reacher has no choice but to trust Richard won't spill the beans to his father. Reacher, with his classic directness, says the following: "Don't overplay your hand too much, kid. I don't like you that much." Stone cold delivery of a simple truth. Reacher likes Richard, but if the kid makes himself a threat, Reacher will put the kid down if there are no other options. He won't like it, but Reacher is a pragmatist at heart. Speaking of people overplaying their hand, Zachary Beck picks up on some tension between his son and Reacher when they return. Richard plays it off that he encountered the bullies again and Reacher defended him again. Zachary then has the gall to threaten Reacher for protecting his son. The audacity on display is astoundingly stupid. Even Reacher just kind of stares at Zachary as if he were a fungus that needed to be uprooted. The real tension of the episode finally starts to build as we cut to two separate groups of bad guys doing very bad things. One pair of hitmen target Private Powell, the army guy Reacher spoke to in the first episode who ran Quinn's plates for him. The gunmen kill Powell's landlord and proceed to torture the young soldier for information on who contacted him. To his credit, Powell never breaks, even when he's beaten to a pulp. When Quinn gets on the phone with his hitters and realizes Powell isn't going to talk, Quinn orders his men to gut Powell just for kicks. I so cannot wait for Quinn to die badly at the end of this season. The other pair of hitmen descend on Neely in her office complex in Chicago. This was a terrible move on the part of the hitters. Neely manages to outmaneuver the hitmen, using her office environment to her advantage since she was initially caught off guard and without her sidearm. Neely does manage to get back to her desk and her gun, resulting in one of the gunmen getting shot dead and the other shot in the gut. Neely then nonchalantly prepares a bowl of cereal while calling Reacher to inform him of the attempted hit. I love Neely in these scenes. She's very much her own person, but you can tell that Reacher has had an effect on her. The gut shot hitter has the audacity to ask for an ambulance, which draws a sardonic expression from Neely. She eventually capitulates and calls an ambulance, but right after, she admits to the hitter that while the ambulance is about 3 minutes out, he'll be dead within a minute. Cold as ice and well-deserved. I loved this scene so much, and Maria Sten continues to be a joy to watch as this character. With Neely's phone call, Reacher knows that his time undercover is up. In a spectacular shootout, Reacher manages to escape the Beck compound. Leave it to Reacher to use a snowplow to make his exit from the grounds. He's not able to make it far on account of the plow being shot to hell and back, but this is Reacher, and his plot armor is strong. Using some mud and the nighttime forest surroundings, Reacher is able to systematically take out the goons sent after him. It's clear that Reacher isn't looking to run from these guys. He's hunting them down. A particularly brutal death is when Reacher uses the winch on one of the ATV bikes to create a mechanized garrote for one of the goons. Seriously wicked use of an everyday item, but that's what makes these kind of scenes fun to watch. The aftermath of the escape is also pretty hilarious. Wandering into town covered in mud and dirt, Reacher walks over to a small laundromat run by an elderly Asian couple. He bribes the old couple to shut down early, which helps when Paulie tracks Reacher's escape but doesn't bother to look at closed businesses in the immediate area. The sight of Reacher wearing just a towel while waiting for his clothes to get clean and sharing a cup of coffee with the couple is just funny as hell to me. One can only imagine what is going through the minds of the husband and wife who own the shop in that moment. Unfortunately, this leaves Richard and Zachary at the mercy of an incensed Xavier Quinn. I have to give credit to Brian T. for his performance in this episode. He brings a hint of pure madness to Quinn's actions that is barely kept under the surface at times. Quinn clearly revels in his ability to make people do what he wants them to do and the power that gives him. He's a malignant narcissist and a sadist, which is put on full display in this scene. Not satisfied with simply verbally abusing Zachary, he makes the elder Beck watch as Richard is forced to play Russian roulette repeatedly. Richard is so out of his depth here. He briefly contemplates shooting Quinn, but the threat of what Paulie will do without Quinn there to restrain him hangs in the air. To finish off the scene, Quinn lays down a knife, stating he wants a matching pair of ears. Zachary is going to have to slice off his own ear in front of Richard. Just damn. The episode's finale, though, leads to a fairly baffling conclusion, which I'll get to in a moment. It turns out the number Frank the dressmaker gave Duffy is to a boat dock. Reacher recalls his brief conversations with Harley, who had mentioned he was excited to get back to his boat that he leaves in the area. Reacher and Duffy go to the boat, where they confirm it was the place Quinn was holding Teresa. After the reveal of Reacher as another mole in the operation, Quinn's paranoia is in overdrive. Teresa is no longer being kept on the boat, but Harley arrives shortly after Duffy and Reacher get there. Using some quite painful interrogation techniques, the pair learn that no one knows exactly what's going on now that Quinn has circled the wagons, so to speak. Harley is left to die as his boat explodes from the fire set during the initial fight with him on board. Too bad, so sad. Moving on. The baffling part of this episode is the ending of it, though. With no further leads, Reacher has some kind of epiphany and decides he and Duffy need to travel to Los Angeles to look up one of Quinn's clients. I'm not sure why this road trip is necessary, particularly this late in the season. It feels like another one of those sharp left turns the series takes from time to time without much lead up. Overall, Smoke on the Water is a serviceable episode of TV with some standout moments. I cannot say enough good things about Maria Sten as Neely. I would watch that woman read a phone book and be happy about it. The plot finally moves into its endgame phase with the undercover mission ending. Honestly, I felt that part of the story lasted far longer than it should have. I'm also not that enthusiastic about this trip to Los Angeles. No doubt it'll give Duffy and Reacher a chance to finally hook up, which they've been teasing all season long, but I don't feel confident that this is a worthy side quest this late in the story. That's it for this review, though. Once again, if you've enjoyed this recap and analysis, hit that like and subscribe, and consider signing up for my Patreon to show your support there as well. Have a great day.